These are some really inspiring stories about people who have triumphed over the most impossible odds. If you are looking for a feel-good book, check out this list. Malala is the youngest person ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but the main one is because she is such a proponent for girls' education, especially in places where girls really aren't encouraged or even allowed to go to school. Malala has a really interesting story. Her dad was a teacher. She grew up really valuing education. Then the Taliban took over Pakistan, and her world basically changed overnight. Girls were first discouraged, and then later they were not allowed to go to school. And so Malala starts writing about this, and her writing gets an international audience. People start seeing what's happening in Pakistan, and they start supporting her and other girls who really want to go to school. While the Taliban does not like what Malala has been writing. And one day when she is on the bus, two men with guns stop her and shoot her in the head. She miraculously survives, but she has not stopped talking about the importance of girls' education around the world. And so that's why she won the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, there are a lot of details that I'm leaving out of this story. If you want to learn about this amazingly incredible person who did so much before even the age of 16, you have got to read this book. Spare Parts is the story of a robotics team. And this team comes from an area that does not have a lot of money. A lot of stuff that they use for their robots, they get from garbage dumps, or they find on the street, or they have to invent things because they just don't have the money for some of the very basic robotics parts that they need. So this is the story about how a group of people got really innovative and became one of the top robotics teams in the entire country because of the fact that they didn't have a lot of money and a lot of advantages. This is a great book for anybody who's into robotics and anybody who likes a really feel-good underdog story. The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind is the story about a boy who lives in a country in Africa, and they are going through an insanely horrible drought that is killing all of the crops, and the population of his country are starving. So this one boy, William, decides that he is going to take matters into his own hands. So he builds a wind turbine from just scraps that he finds in a dump, from random things that he finds around his community, and he learns how to do this from a library book. What's really interesting about this story is his whole take on innovation. He can see anything and see a purpose for it. So if you are one of those people that just really likes tinkering with things, if you like engineering and science and trying to solve problems using everyday materials, this is a great book for you. The Boys Who Challenged Hitler is one of my favorite books. This is the story of a group of boys who are in middle school and high school during the 1930s, and the Nazis invade Denmark, their home. And a couple groups of boys decide that they do not like this. They believe that they should fight the Nazis, that the Nazis are evil, that they should fight them. So they decide to kind of do that. So at first it's just little pranks. They switch street signs around to try to confuse the Nazis. They do like little things, but it's nothing major. And then as time goes on, their pranks kind of evolve into stealing and destruction of property. And so the stakes keep rising and rising and rising until finally Hitler himself learns about these boys and decides that they need to be stopped immediately. And by stopped, they do not mean just like simply put in jail. So this is a really incredible story about this group of high schoolers and middle schoolers who challenged Hitler and the entire Nazi military when even their own country wouldn't. A Long Walk to Water is an interesting book because it's done in two different perspectives. And one of them is like a perspective from now, and then another is a perspective from about 20 years before. This is a story about water and how important it actually is. We don't think about it because we get water out of faucets in our bathrooms and in our kitchens. And so we don't really think about it. But this book illustrates how different it is getting water in other parts of the world, how you have to walk miles to find drinkable water in some areas of the world. So if you are an environmentalist, if you are a humanitarian, this is a must read for you. And it's also a very short book that I guarantee you will love. For even more book suggestions or to request your own nonfiction book, go to www.cromaine.org or email youthandteen@cromaine.org to send in your request. Happy reading!